Hey, I'm Albert Tate, and I'm so excited to be at the GLS in 2020. I've been working through the perfect prayers for leaders to pray, and it's this idea of what are the big prayers that every leader should pray. It's amazing to me how much I expect God to do things, but how little I pray about those big things. So we're going to talk about big prayers that leaders should pray in order for them to have big impact. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. These are 3 prayers that are going to change your life. This is what I'm talking about at the Summit 2020.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Pursuit. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Abby, and I have a special guest for you today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jared DePriest. I'm a resident here this year and just been invited to come join Abby and the team today, and it's been awesome to be a part.
We're super excited to have you with us, Jared.
Thanks.
So the leadership residency just ended last week, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everybody what you learned from it and just kind of what your experience was with the leadership residency?
Yeah, so the leader residency was awesome. It was just a cool opportunity to dive into ministry and what it looks like and how the Pursuit kind of does things a little differently. And yeah, it was really cool. It was challenging for sure. They brought some stuff that was definitely challenging and awesome, but it was just good material, good time, and just got to be a part of some wonderful growth and ministry opportunities.
Yeah, that's so awesome. We have people who serve on our teams, but sometimes they just have that hunger to see what else can I do, or where's my next step. So if you are interested in the leadership residency, on August 15th is our deadline for applicants, and we're getting ready to start our next bunch of residents coming through.
Yeah.
So if that's something you're interested in, go on to thepursuit.church and you can fill out an application. We can get info to you, reach out to you and see if that's something that you want to do. So also this past week was a big week for us. Our Kids Pursuit opened back up.
Yeah, that was cool. That's
I know.
Exciting,
I was really excited to have our kids back in the church and back in the building. Jared, what about you? Are you excited to have your girls back in action?
Yeah, they just love church and love being a part of it, and they've missed it. They got a little upset when they couldn't come.
I know.
Why can't I go to church? And so now they're back and they're super on cloud 9 and get to hang out with some of their cool teachers.
Yeah, that's great. It's hard. I know it was definitely hard transition throughout the pandemic, and our team is just so ready to have our kids back, and it just feels great to have everybody back in the building. Also, Stanley will be reopening their Kids Pursuit on July 5th. So if you're in the Stanley area, keep an eye out on their Facebook page, and just watch for the newsletter info on how to get your kids plugged back in. And I do know something that was super helpful for our kids team was to pre-register on our church app, to just get the kids into the system if you've never been before, because we're trying to do essentially a touchless service, no buckets being passed, and so just trying to keep our safety precautions.
Yeah, because kids don't social distance.
I know, that's really
it's
hard.
Challenging.
So, but we have a great team in place that's cleaning for us and just helping us get our kids back into action at church. Something else that is coming up in Stanley on the 4th of July, they are doing a 4th of July parade.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. That's exciting. They're going to decorate a float and just be kind of part of the parade there. So it should be a really fun time.
Does your family do anything crazy for 4th of July?
Not normally, but this year we're going to to go camping in Yellowstone and stuff. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my husband loves fireworks, so we always have like a big firework display. But if you are interested in joining the Stanley team for their float, email Pastor Jesse at jesse.barlow@thepursuit.church, and he can get you plugged right in. I think this is going to be such a cool opportunity for the Stanley area to get to know the community more. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about how the 4th of July goes for them.
Yeah, should be a good time for them over there.
So at the church, a part of our culture is just developing leaders and developing disciples and getting people plugged in and really just being the hands and feet of Christ. And I know you got to see that a lot in the residency.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So coming up here in August, we have our Global Leadership Summit. Cool. And did you come to the summit last year?
Yeah, so me and the wife attended last year, and it's just a great way to challenge your leadership and get a bunch of tools and stuff that you can, move forward with your leadership and ability to just lead. And it's awesome. It's challenging and really cool, but
yeah. And this is before you were considering ministry at all, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's just there's really good speakers and kind of motivational stuff, which I'm into. So it's really good.
Yeah. So even if you're not, maybe ministry isn't your forte, that doesn't mean that you're exempt from the summit. This is such an awesome way for business owners or just for somebody who doesn't know what their next step is, whether it's as a body of the church or not. And it just brings out potential for you. So if you think this is something that you're interested in, you can go to thepursuit.church and type in a coupon code LEAD2020 to watch. But we're going to watch a short clip on what the summit looks like. So that looks great. I'm excited about our lineup this year. I keep talking about TD Jakes. Do you know who he is?
Yeah,
he is so good. He's so motivational. So if you guys liked what you just saw, go to thepursuit.church and type in LEAD2020 for our coupon code to get a little discount on that ticket price.
Yeah.
So also, Jared, you are going to be posted up at our New Here tent this week.
Yeah, so that's exciting. It's just a way for me to get involved into ministry and kind of the works and serve on a team and help out.
Yeah, that's really cool. So if you are brand new here, whether you're watching online, type in the word connect to the phone number on the screen so we can get to know you. But if you are in the building, stop by the bright orange tent in the foyer. Jared will be posted up there. I'll be there and we'll get to know you. We have a gift for you. And also, if you're online, we have a gift for you too. So we just want to get to know you guys and to hear about your family and get you plugged into our church. It's just a fun way to meet you guys. Also, with the touchless service happening, we've been doing digital bulletins. Have you got to check that out?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's on the Bible app, and it's pretty friendly. I'm pretty rough with technology, but if I can figure it out,
good.
People should be able to get it. So
yeah, so if you go to the YouVersion Bible app, if you don't have it downloaded, download it right away and click on events on the side of the screen, and you can type in the Pursuit, and all of our bulletin info will be on there, and you can stay up to date on events that we have coming up. Like, for instance, we have a different momentum gatherings happening throughout the summer, and it's just our way to stay engaged with you.
Yeah, and stay connected.
Yep, and we also have our newsletter on our website. If you go to thepursuit.church, it will bring a pop-up up, and then you can type in your email, and then you'll just get a weekly newsletter to tell you all about the happenings at the Pursuit. So I am so excited about next sermon series.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm super pumped on it.
Go ahead and tell them what it is.
It's going to be Mixtape Volume 3.
Three. Mixtape Volume 3. So our theme this year will be Disney, and I love Disney movies. If you could pick a Disney movie or song, what would it be?
It'd probably have to be A Whole New World from Aladdin.
Ooh, okay, a little sentimental there.
Yeah, it's
okay.
a favorite movie. So.
Go ahead and put in the chat. I want to know what your guys' favorite Disney movies are and what your favorite Disney song is. If you were a Disney character, who do you think you would be?
Oh, that's so good. I don't know. Yeah. Who would you be? Give me a second.
Well, I mean, I would love to be Ariel because I love mermaids, but I'm pretty bossy, so I think Merida from Brave or Elsa from Frozen because it's kind of more bossy girl.
Yeah. So I'd probably be like Jack Sparrow, probably.
Ooh, that's a good one. So fun fact, I shared this with our team last week. Pirates of the Caribbean was a Disney ride before it was ever a movie. So they developed the movie from the ride. So when we go into our Mixtape Volume 3 Disney songs, we'll be posting which song we'll be teaching a gospel-centered message off of a snippet of the song, but we're also going to be dressing up themed for that week. So it's just going to be a fun week at the Pursuit.
Yeah, it'll be really
We
cool.
like to do the mixtape. This is our third summer that we've done it, and it's just a fun way in the summer to kind of interact with each other and bring some fun to it.
Yeah, my kids are going to love it.
I'm all about fun.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. So this week, though, we don't want to forget, we have, we're wrapping up our sermon series, Won't You Be My Neighbor? I've been really loving this series.
Yeah, it's just a timely series that we couldn't have planned any better, and it's been really good to dive in and listen to it.
So today we're having a panel with 3 people and Pastor Tom just to talk about how to neighbor well, how to love each other well, and I think this will be a really unique, great discussion that we get to be a part of and watch as a church. So
yeah, it'll be really good just to see different point of views and different backgrounds. It'll be really exciting.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to what Pastor Tom has to say. Jared, I'm so glad you got to join me today.
Yeah, thanks.
And wherever you guys are, prepare for worship. I'm really looking forward to what we have to hear.
See you guys.
Hi, Pursuit family. Thank you so much for joining us for service today. We are so glad to be worshiping with you. Wherever you're at, put your hands together, stand up, sit down, whatever you want to do, and let's worship the Lord.
To the sky, there's no place between you and I. Wherever I go, never alone. I'm waking up, I come alive. The past is gone, the future can wait. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful day. is Christ in me. This is Christ in me. I'm living unashamed. Now my heart's forever changed. This is Christ in me. This is Christ in me. My past is in the grave. My sin is washed away. This is Christ in me. This is Christ in me. I'm living is the way. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna fear the storm just because I hear it roar. I don't wanna fear the storm. I don't wanna fear the storm. Peace be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. I'm not gonna be afraid, 'cause these waves are only waves. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna fear the storm, far greater than its roar. I'm not gonna fear the storm. No, I'm not gonna fear it all. Yeah. Peace be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace, peace over me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Peace be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Lord, peace be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace, peace over me.
Thanks for tuning in with us today. My name is Nick, one of the pastors here at our Minot campus, and we are so honored that you would spend this time with us. I hope that worship set was as encouraging to you as it was to me. Music and worship is such a powerful thing, and it's amazing how it encourages us no matter where we're listening, whether it's at home, in the car, or at work. Just a huge blessing. If you're new to the pursuit, I would encourage you to text connect to the number we're dropping in the comments section or on the screen. We would love the chance to get to know you, hear from you, but also give you a digital gift we have for you. And just so you know, we have a tool available for you to stay engaged with each week's service. All you need is the YouVersion Bible app. go to events and you'll find the Pursuit there, and you can follow along with notes from today's message, also what's going on in the life of our church, and so you can get engaged in that. As we transition to the giving moment today, one of the things that Jesus taught us in Matthew chapter 6 was to not store up treasures here on this earth. You see, Jesus knew that we cannot separate our money from our faith. And a lot of times you and I, we think of our faith as something we say or believe, or we think of money as this thing that's not spiritual. But the truth is, money is a very spiritual thing, and how we use the resources God has blessed us with is very important to our faith. And so Jesus said in chapter 6 of Matthew to store up eternal treasures. And when you give to the local church, you are actually using your resources for us to reach people far from God, which is Jesus's plan for salvation for the world. And so there's a few ways you can give at the Pursuit. You can give online, you can text to give, you can even mail in a check if that's how you prefer to give. And if you've never taken the step of putting God first in your finances, I want to invite you to pray about how God would want you to use the resources that He's given you. Here in just a second, we're going to get into today's message, but I want to share with you what's coming next in our upcoming sermon series. Is we are doing Mixtape Volume 3, the Disney editions. And if you've been around for a mixtape series, you know is what we do is we pick some popular songs that you probably have memorized and could sing along. And what we do is we look at the lyrics of those songs, and then we compare it to those same topics in the Bible, and we see what Scripture actually has to say about certain topics like happiness, worry, joy, or resentment and temptation in this Disney Mixtape Volume 3 sermon series. And so I'm really excited. But today we are finishing up a sermon series, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And we're going to have an awesome conversation that's going to help us gain some perspective on just how we approach being neighbors in wherever God has called us to be. So let's tune in to see what that conversation looks like today.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We're so thankful that wherever you're joining us, whether it's online or in Stanley, that you've chose to come and spend some time with us. And we are in week 4 of a series called Won't You Be My Neighbor, which has been really powerful and so good for our local church as we've got to look into what Scripture says about what it means to love our neighbor as ourselves. Now today I have something really special planned for our church. In lieu of getting to hear me preach another message in this sermon series, I've invited some friends to come and just have a candid conversation about race and faith, and just talk about where we're at as a country and what we can do as a local church to be the church, to represent God in this time. So I'm so thankful for this opportunity. I want to quickly introduce my friends here with us today. We'll start over here. We have the Chief of Police here in Minot, John Klug, who's been at the helm for about 5 months. Is that right?
Yeah, just under 5 months. So
under 5 months. And you've been in the law enforcement for 25 years?
Yep, 25 plus years. I got my start in 1995. So
that's awesome. And then we got Ernest Usher III, who is a community activist. He's been a big voice in our community for racial inequality, racial equality, and something that's really neat too. He's a part of the Pursuit Church. He's a team member, leads a group on our Connections team. You want to share a little bit about yourself?
I really, again, I'm glad to be here. It's definitely been a journey, I will say, for everything that's been going on. But I'm just glad that people have allowed me just to voice how I feel and voice the truth. And I think the Minot community are, they're trying to come together to do something strong. So I just appreciate that.
Thanks, Ernest. And we have Yucari Brown, who's been a long time Pursuit Church member, and you lead our Momentum, one of our Momentum High School community groups, and you're also in the U.S. Air Force. Would you share anything else with?
I just enjoy the fact that people are now having a conversation with such a tough topic. There's times where people want to fare away from conversations like this, and it's very interesting that now we are having that conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for being a part of the conversation today. Now, some people might be asking, why are we having this conversation in the local church? And I just want to say before we jump into some of the questions that I think it's incredibly important for the church to be talking about race and inequality, because I think it's at the heart of God. It's at the heart of who God is. In Genesis 1, it talks about how he created everybody in his image and likeness, that everybody has inherent value because he's created us. And when anybody in our community or in our nation or in our world is being mistreated because of something like the color of their skin, we as Christ followers, we need to use our voice to stand up, to speak out, to speak into it, and draw people back to the heart of God. And so we'll talk more about that later, but I just wanted to answer that question real briefly of why would we be having this conversation in the context of the church. But the first question I want to ask you guys, I'd love to get your thoughts from all of you, is I think what really has triggered this latest sort of boiling point in our community was what happened to George Floyd. And I know all of you have seen the video, and I'd just love to hear from each of you, what went through your mind when you saw what happened to George Floyd? We can start with you down here and kind of work our way this way.
Yeah, it was shocking. I looked at it and I watched the video, and I actually didn't catch it right away. I don't watch a lot of TV, but somebody said, "Hey, have you seen this video of what took place in Minneapolis?" And I was like, "No, but I'll check it out." And I took a look, and I thought, what is he doing? Like, why is he kneeling on him? Like, and it does, to me, it wasn't about race at that moment. I was just like, why would you do that? But you could see the calm in his face when he did it, and that it almost made me sick to think that somebody could go through that knowing that the person under them was dying and eventually died. And again, just shocking that even regardless of the time, I've never thought I need to do this for 8 minutes to hold this person down when there's 4 other officers there. Obviously, the situation was under control. From any angle that I have watched, everything was under control. So obviously, an abuse of power that led to the death of George Floyd, unacceptable.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard a single person from the law enforcement community, from any community, that's seen that video and even tried to justify what takes place. I don't know. Yeah, Ernest, what was your thoughts when you saw?
I was upset. I've seen the video probably from every angle that you can think of. And every time I looked at it, I was upset. I saw this father, his life get snubbed out. And when I found out the reasoning was over just like a $20 bill that possibly could have been fake, I was even more upset at that point, because no one should lose their life to any type of brutality, but especially over something as simple and small as that. That was my boiling point. And I was mad for a while, because I know you said you didn't see anybody that said anything, but in the comment section of YouTube and Facebook where I've seen the videos, I saw people justifying this cop kneeling on this man's neck. And I can't understand why people still think that that's okay. And I had just, I didn't say I got over it, but I had just looked at the Ahmaud Arbery situation from like 20 different angles. And then this came out that day. And I watched it the day that it happened. And I was like, enough is enough. Something has to change. Because if it doesn't change, civil unrest is going to change it. And of course, that's what happened. So I'm still kind of mad, because I feel like even though people did get arrested, people did get locked up, I still feel like that's not enough, because I still keep watching videos of other things that keep coming out. And so that's the fight that I have every day, trying to figure out what's going to be next, you know?
So have you ever watched a movie and you know how the ending is going to be, and so you're trying to prepare yourself for the ending, and it's traumatic, and you're like, you know it's going to be traumatic, so you're trying to watch it, and you're like, oh, and you already know someone's kind of told you the end, because people had already told me the end of it before I'd seen the video. So I kind of knew what to expect. But as you're watching it, you're getting more and more traumatized because your anxiety's raising because you're like, oh my gosh, I know what's gonna happen. I know what's gonna happen. And the whole time as you're watching the video, you're getting sicker and you're getting sicker and you're getting sicker. And tears are starting to stream down your face because you know what the ending is gonna be. And you know at some point that you're gonna watch this person take their last breath. And so for me, I knew what the ending was gonna be. And so as I'm watching this, you're wondering, when is this gonna be the last breath of air he's gonna take? And so it makes you cringe because just like Ernest said, when's the next video gonna come out? When's the next incident gonna happen? And you know it's gonna be that same final ending. And there's no changing the storyline. There's no making a happy ending. You know the end of that storyline is gonna be the fact that someone's gonna be dead. And so that's what when I look at that video, you understand looking at that next video, you may not even have to watch it because you know at the end of the day, that same circumstance is gonna happen again. And is there gonna be any justice? Because really, is there any justice when someone's life's really taken?
Yeah, I can tell you when I saw that video too, it was incredibly difficult to watch. And I just think, take all the politics out of it, take what your faith background is, to just see somebody be treated like that and watch that video from just a complete moral standpoint is just completely heartbreaking. And as people of God, we have to stand up and we have to call out when we see things like that we know are wrong, that we know go against God's heart and desire for people. And it's hard to watch. And I think from, growing up, I grew up in the Washington State area, and I know I'm learning that there's differences between what someone who grows up, say, in the black community versus the white community experiences. It seems like whenever there's an incident between a police officer and a black man, the initial reaction from the white community is, well, let's just sit back and wait to see the facts. Let's see this whole thing play out. But I've come to realize that from the black community, and you guys can speak into this, I know I'm getting off script from the questions we talked about. It's going, hey, I don't need to see the facts for the situation. I have a long history of instances that I've seen that lead me to be outraged, not just because of what we're going to find out after the fact, but this is not a common story. This isn't just a one-time incident. And so maybe you guys can speak into that a little bit as well.
Right, because it's, as this young lady spoke to, the end result is continuously the same. It's death. It's not that a store might have been robbed. It's not that we know the situation where it's just simply selling cigarettes. We know it was looking into an empty building, just seeing what was there. We can find that out later. I don't care. My problem is the result does not have to be death. Like, even I've looked at videos from different ways, and I'm not a cop. I know he's going to attest to this. Like, it can be, if you have to just hit me in the leg and I fall, if I'm doing something that's so illegal and so bad, do that. At least I can go to court. At least I can get my fingerprints done. At least I can ride in the back of a cop car and go through the process before at least that. But it doesn't have to be death. Why is that the judge, jury, and executioner on the spot consistently in these videos? And that's what the African American community is tired of witnessing. We're witnessing like trials by death on social media. Like, that's unimaginable. Even though it's been happening for years upon years, now it's on camera and we have to watch it. And now our kids are watching it as well. And we're having to explain to our kids what's going on while we're upset. And it's like, where do we turn from this point? That's the issue that we're having.
John, do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, and that's what makes it a really tough conversation. And because we look at it from the standpoint of taking life-saving measures, and I'm not talking about George Floyd, I'm talking about any other incident that might happen where somebody dies in the end. And at least in my 25 years, I can say I've never been waiting for that opportunity to kill somebody. And if somebody is waiting for that in law enforcement, please find another career. It is not, that is the last resort of what we are here to do. And we take the protect and serve, and some people call it just kind of a corny little thing that we say, and it's lost meaning. And in some places it has lost meaning, because who are they serving? Who are they protecting? There was nobody protected in George Floyd's case. There was nobody protected or served. And that has caused suffering for a whole nation, a whole world that is now seeing things different. I put my uniform on, and I'm proud of my uniform. I'm proud of my badge. I'm proud of our department. But I'm more proud of our community, because even if somebody doesn't agree with the way we handle things, they're willing to talk about it. I have not found somebody that will completely shut me out. I've had really close, but usually I can be patient enough to just hear what they have to say. If that's all I get is to hear this conversation and I don't say one word, it's worth my time being here.
I know I'm jumping around a little bit. Just so you guys know, I gave them some questions ahead of time so they had a chance to think through it, but I'm throwing some curveballs on them here by asking questions out of order and different questions here. But in follow-up, I want to hear from you, Chief Klug. Just talk us through what it's like to have the uniform and to get a call, and you now are the officer responding to a call. What's going through your mind? What are the things that you're thinking about as you're stepping into a potentially, unknown situation that you're finding yourself in? Help us understand what it's like to be in the shoes of a police officer.
Yeah, and that's something that, we run through those scenarios over and over again. And that's where, when you deal with a situation, you start looking at, okay, here's what I'm going to, but we know everything is going to have a little bit different outcome. We know the person's reaction is going to be a little different. We know that our reaction might be a little bit different based on what we've dealt with to that point that day or what our past experience has been. But we try to find out as much as we can before we get there so that we're fully prepared and we're not caught off guard. The one thing that people don't see, because we try to cover it really well, is in most cases what keeps us alive is fear. But we have to control that fear so that our response is accurate. We can't just be afraid and go killing everybody we deal with because, well, I was afraid in that moment. It's just not right. I think most officers do their best to respond appropriately when they go to a call. I don't think that some officers prepare themselves for that worst case scenario. In this instance, let me back up just a little bit. Until I became the chief of police, we saw what happens around the country, and we think, boy, we're glad that's not happening here. I'd hate to have to deal with that. But realistically, we're dealing with that. But now, the first thing I did was say, we have to educate ourselves on what's going on. We have to educate ourselves. I called a meeting with all my supervisors, and I said, here's what's going to happen. We have to be prepared to have a conversation. Sitting here and having this conversation, it's not comfortable, but we have to deal with what's not comfortable. And there's some fear that, well, if you have that conversation, you're going to open yourself up. You're going to be vulnerable. They're going to question, you're the white cop who could kill the next black person. That's absolutely true. But I'm still here, still having the conversation. It's a difficult conversation. And it's sad that we have to have it. And that we keep going down the same road over and over again. And we can't erase history. We can sure change it. We can change the future. And that's what it's about. It's about somebody stepping up and saying, okay, it's time. I didn't think it'd be me, honestly. I didn't think it'd be me sitting here and having this conversation because I thought there's no problem in Minot. But I'm not going to wait until there is.
And that's the whole point of what he just said, because as I told Pastor Tom before, I personally, from where I'm from, we don't do this. I'm not sitting next to no cop. Like, I'm just not. Like, he's over there, and I'm over here. I'm from South Georgia. Like, we not vibing. But the fact during the memorial service we had for Floyd that we put on, we had the complete cooperation of the Minot PD. And then at the Juneteenth event, last week, not only do we have the cooperation of the Minot PD, but they were out there having conversations with us, African-American people, and it was conversations finding out different things. I mean, I talked to like at least 3 out there. Of course, my boy Aaron Moss, PD. We just had conversations, and it was a big deal for people to see us vibing in that way. And I'm hoping that something that we do here sparks a change where I'm from, because it's great for Minot we don't have these problems, which is why I can say, okay, yeah, this is a good dude, and the dudes that I talk to on the cop force are good dudes. But that doesn't matter when I get back to Georgia. I have to change everything about who I am again. 10 and 2, no hoodie on. I got a hoodie. Hey, put that thing down, the hood part. I got to make sure that my family is secure and safe. If I got money, I got to make sure I'm presenting a card. I'm not walking in threatening. I got to smile at any time I see someone that looks like you. I got to smile at them. Or, I got to do all of that where I'm from. And that's the issue that we're having. The fear that you all have is the same fear that's always there. And I know we talk about the scripture, fear is not of God, and it's not, but this fear is a legit fear that I have, to where you cool in Minot, but in South Georgia, you ain't cool. And I only have my relationship with you when the red and blue lights are behind me. That's when I got 5 minutes with you. Either I'm gonna get locked up or a ticket. That's the only way I know you. They're not trying to have these, hey, let's have a conversation to figure out how we can make this community better. No, it's not like that. And so that's where my heart definitely goes out to, because my friends always say, well, Ernest, that's in Minot. It ain't here. I know. And that's the problem that I have. Like, I appreciate him and his honest openness, but I wish it was just spread to other PDs around the country. Like, we got to be this open with people and destroy the fear and make an actual connection, an actual relationship.
How do we, so you guys both have used that word. You just talked about it, Ernest, about how, and John, you said that when a police officer responds, that there's this fear. And then you talked about when you get pulled over or have an interaction with a police officer, there's a fear. What can we do you guys think, to begin to erase the fear that exists between law enforcement and community? What are the things that you guys see are going to be helpful for us so we don't see the same video over and over and over again of, a misuse of power and authority and someone lying in the street dead? How do we begin to reconcile or eliminate that fear so that we can have more, I don't know what the right word is, but better interactions between law enforcement and the Black community?
Thing. So, everyone has biases, right? And I think part of the problem is that fear comes from a bias. So what he's talking about is that action of being pulled over by a cop. You're taught that from the minute you're born. Like, if you're African American or you're Black, that's how you have to be raised, especially if you're in the South. Like, if your parents get pulled over, it's automatic. You need to sit up, you need to do this. Like, it's a trained reaction. But it's a trained reaction because, one of the questions you gave us was about laws. And I really thought about that question, right? Because we say the law says that this is what's supposed to happen, right? But I'm gonna give you a prime example. Let's say you got going down 83, the speed limit is 70, right? Today, we can go and change that speed limit sign and make it 60. How many people are gonna continue to drive 70? The law changed, but people's mentality and what they think, they're going to continue in that way until what happens? That light gets behind them and they get pulled over and they get a speeding ticket, and then something clicks and they go, oh, I didn't know the law changed. Yeah, you did. You drove past it every day. You knew that it changed from 70 to 60. You made a conscious decision to keep going. So in that, there are biases, right? And when you're raised in the South, and I was raised in the South too, you're taught this. And it's not that you're just taught this, you experience that bias over and over and over and over again to the point that it becomes ingrained and it becomes secondary. Because even though I'm in Minot, North Dakota, if blue lights come behind me, I'm going to have the same reaction as if I was sitting in the South. Right. And not only am I going to have that same reaction, I think it's also on the other side, cops are going to have the same reaction. One of my friends said, Lakeisha Hike, she said, it's not that I'm afraid of the cops. She goes, I want to know why are the cops afraid when they pull me over? So that bias exists on both sides because we have this history, right? And you can't eliminate history, and you can't go back and say the Confederate flag meant this and now it means this, right? History is there, but there has to be a point where, like we said, that stoplight, those lights come on behind you and someone starts arresting the things that are happening, and they start really advocating for that change, and where that change and says, this right here is the line in the sand. We're no longer gonna bounce between the sand. And it's just like training a child. Like you tell them like, this is hot. They go to touch it, they realize like, oh, I burned my hand. They won't touch it anymore. That's not happening. So we continuously are in that same circle, because even though the laws have changed, mentalities haven't and biases haven't.
Right. And I've seen from what you're saying, you know, that's a perfect example because they haven't changed. And if you want to answer to exactly what you said, how well do you know your neighborhood? Like I talked to another cop, and it's like on the board, they have all these infractions in this neighborhood that's probably may happen, and you may have to respond to this kind of call. Here's the percentage of people that you may have to deal with that does this. And so it's all these negative connotations before I even start my day. So I'm already going in thinking, okay, we got to make sure I make this quota, meet this quota, this negative connotation, this neighborhood had this last night. All right, I get in my car and I drive. And I don't know if this is you. I'm just saying from what I talked to a person about, that's in their head. So when I see something that looks like, I already have a solution in my head to fix what I think I see. But the best way to solve this is to don't go in with a solution. Go in asking questions. Like, hey, everything good over here? Yeah, we're just out here playing. All right, have a good day. I'm not wasting my time heckling those two kids that are playing. I'm just not. Like the kids that got pulled over that were walking, that they said they were jaywalking when they weren't, because there was no sidewalks. They were walking in the street. And this cop gave them all kind of the business, but they weren't jaywalking. It's like, hey, y'all, I know you're in the street. There's no sidewalks. Stay the best you can on the side. Have a good day. I'm done. Why am I stopping my car calling backup for some kids that jaywalking? Like, this is the fear. This is why the fear is not just a bias fear, but it's ingrained, because I've been pulled over 5 times. I can tell you in South Georgia, I do nothing wrong. I was pulled over coming from church as ordained minister. Had 2 people in my car. They pulled me over, and he called backup to question the 2 people in the back of my car to make sure I was coming from where I was coming from. And the other cop had his hand on his gun, wishing that I would move. Popped my trunk, which I had no drugs or nothing, but they didn't care. Then I was pulled over for going home from work twice. Where you going? Come home from work. Let me see your license registration. I was young. I didn't know to ask, why'd you pull me over? Why am I having to think that? You pulled me over. You tell me why. Nothing was wrong. We were just checking, looking for something. I sat here 20 minutes for you to check to look for something. Like, this is my pain that I'm trying to say that, yeah, that's might be something you might do, but it's always in every situation for me a white cop and I'm black. It's just, that's the way it was. But if you get to know your neighborhood and know the people in your neighborhood and have things set up in your neighborhood to establish connections, you'll see that the neighborhood that you thought had all these percentages, which it might be true, you'll know everybody doesn't think that way. And then it's like, okay, I've talked to you before. Yeah, he's good. He's just playing. Oh yeah, they're fine. They're just sitting on the porch having fun. Because you know them by name. So the best cops I've seen are the ones that know those kids and those adults by name. Because they already know they're not doing anything wrong. They're just having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. That's the one thing that I think is interesting is a lot of what you're saying is what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get to know the people in our communities. Regardless, we should have some idea of, we're going to know where the problems are. They're not going to change. Most of the time, they're in the same place every time. But the number one thing is to open the ears and listen before you act. And take a little bit of time, slow things down. Hey, what's going on? Get the answers to a couple basic questions before you start to make decisions on what needs to happen. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. A lot of times it's like, I've been here before, I heard about what this, I heard about this person, I heard about this place, and you jump right in and you have a solution before you actually know the problem. And it just doesn't work that way. There's not a thing in the world that you come up with a solution to before you have a problem. And now, except for what we're dealing with right now, because the problem has been in place, we shouldn't be waiting until now to come up with a solution. So I do have to say the solution for me is we have these conversations, we train and make sure our officers are aware of what their bias is. And a lot of them are afraid. A lot are afraid that they're going to be identified as, I have bias. We all have bias. I have bias. It's bias that I don't really know exists. It's implicit bias. It is just there. And until we educate ourselves about what our own bias is, we're going to keep reacting to something we don't even know exists.
And I know that's, because you'll probably get to that soon, that's the big thing for Stanley and the Minot community, of course, that go to the pursuit. Like, what these two are saying, and Pastor Tom saying, is a big deal. Like, you can't be reactive to a situation. You need to be proactive and already in the community of whatever your circle is, just going to have those conversations with the people that you say are closest to you to make sure you eliminate that bias, you eliminate that type of thinking. And if you don't know how, bring somebody in to teach you how not to think that way. Because I'm not saying everybody's perfect. And I'm not saying everybody grew up with experiencing what we've experienced and what you dealt with, what you just, talked about with, just going to Niagara Falls. But don't sit there and just let it happen. If you got people that you know that are hurting, I don't have to teach you compassion. You just go to them and talk to them. Go to them like, what can I do? Have I been that person towards you? If I have not, what can I do to make sure you're comfortable to where we can have these conversations and I don't treat you indifferent because of a bias that I might have? Like, you have to do that now. You can't wait. You got to go ahead and have those conversations while the window of opportunity is open. And right now, after, unfortunately, George Floyd's death, it is open. And you have to take advantage of that and connect with those relationships.
Well, I think what you said, Ernest, was so powerful. I've heard you speak in different places. And one of the messages I've heard you speak is just the power, like you said, of getting to know your neighbor. Our series is Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it's amazing when you, as a person of faith, you go back to the teachings of Jesus, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think we've gotten so far away from that as a community, as just a nation, where we don't really know our neighbors. We don't know the people on our street. We don't know the people where we work. And if we could just, as people of faith especially, go the extra mile and get to know the people around us, and not just in a surface level, but really get to know them. How do I see them the way God sees them? And it could be a game changer if police officers knew the people that they were serving really well, and the people that live in that community knew their police officers really well. It could totally change the dynamics. And so I think it's powerful what you guys are talking about here. And hopefully we can make some progress in these things. Now I want to ask this question because as somebody, like I said, who's grown up in a white family, when I was getting my driver's license, for instance, and thinking back to what my parents taught me of what an interaction with a police officer is supposed to be like, I'll tell you what it was. and I know I've heard you both talk a little bit about what your experience has been. Basically, my parents said, hey, if you get pulled over, just get far enough out of the road that you're not a danger to anybody, and be respectful, and if you get a ticket, you're paying for it. Now, I know what you guys have been taught, what your parents passed on to you, and what you pass on to your kids is very different. Speak to some of the things that you have been taught or that you teach your kids about when it comes to interacting with police officers.
So one of the things I've taught my kids is you have to have immediate access to your license and registration. Like, you don't need to fumble with it, right? It has gone to the point, like, if you're, depending on what part of the country you're going in, right? It may be as drastic as putting your hands up, because you don't want the officer to make you think that you're making any sudden moves. Because like he said, a lot of times when they approach your car, their hands on the gun. Like, they're waiting for you to make a move. And so you don't want to make any quick gestures or anything and you're like, yes, officer. And you talk very clearly, you talk very distinctly. And it may even go to the point where you're saying, I'm reaching my right hand to get my registration. And so when you're teaching your kids that, it's a mechanism of safety, because you know that you can't be there when your child gets pulled over the first time. You know what that fear feels like, because your heart's beating. You're like, oh my God, I got pulled over. But your senses are heightened. And God forbid it's two officers, because that other officer on the other side is staring you down and have already perceived that you're a criminal. And you can tell that by the words that they say, just by the tone and the demeanor. But the part that kind of gets some people is that if I'm an African American and I'm riding with a white person, they get treated the same way that I am, even if it's a white cop pulling them over, because they already prejudging them because they're riding with me. And so there's been times where we may get pulled over and my friend has been in the front seat, and because they're white, they're like, gosh, this would have been a whole different story if it was me driving, or if I would have been riding by myself. And they're like, I can't believe they treated you like that. This is normal? And I'm like, yeah, I'm used to it, right? This is what we've seen happen to our parents. This is what's happened to me. And those are benchmarked moments in your life. And I know Ernest talked about like going in a store. If you ever pay attention to African American or black kids going in a store, their parents are on them about the fact of, don't touch that item. They're going to think you're stealing. When you walk through the door, take your hoodie off. If their hair is a certain way, if they have dreads or whatever, like, hey, they're going to misconstrue you. That's that bias that's coming in, because you know it's going to happen, because it's happened before, and you get the looks and you get the tone of the voice. And so then you're like, well, I got to react to the situation I'm put in. It's stress management, because I'm under a lot of stress and I'm trying to come out of the stress management the easiest way on the other side.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, you were gonna go? I'm sorry. Because what she was saying is like so powerful, because after all of that, all the experience of getting pulled over and going to the store and these 19 things running through your head for your protection because you want to make it home, you then have to go to work and give 100%. You have to, in society, you're expected to be 100% function like everybody else that doesn't look like you, but don't have to go through the same thing you go through. And what people don't understand is that's the toughest thing in the world, to try to function at a high level as everybody else, as equal, but you're not being treated equally. And that alone is so frustrating. It brings so much anxiety and it brings so much pain. And of all the times that I've been pulled over, of all the experiences that I've had and the things that I've told my son, and like she was talking about in the store, making sure to have a receipt. Because I have to have a receipt. Because if I walk out of the store, I have a receipt. I don't know what's going to happen. So let me just get a receipt. I don't care if it's bubble gum. I don't care. Like, it's in your head. And the only way to get rid of that is not up to you, per se, but the community has to understand they can't treat minorities different because of their skin color. You can't assume because I came into your store and I have a hoodie on and shorts, I'm going to steal something. So you're going to watch me closely and hover over me and hover around me and ask, do I need help every 5 minutes? I just want to look. I don't need anything. And I've experienced that too. And it's like the community has to change their mindset, not just the PD, in order for this to work.
because they alone are just one process. That's 911 call, I'm pulling you over. But what about the other people? They got to be accountable too. That I have money, I'm going to buy something. And if I don't want to buy anything, I'm browsing. Don't give me trouble because somebody else that doesn't look like me came in browsing too. You didn't say nothing to them. That's the harshness, and then to be expected, especially you being in uniform. I got to go to work and give 100%. My wife, I got to go to work and give 100%. Me, I got to go and got to smile, got to give my best customer service. But in the back of my mind, I know what I just dealt with, and that's tough.
I think, for me, as I've leaned in and gone on a process of trying to be empathetic and understanding, because I will never fully understand what it's like to be in your shoes. I'm a white guy, and the experiences that you talk about are so different than my own experiences, and I think it's really, really important for myself and others to hear of what you guys are going through, what the experiences that you've had, because it's eye-opening, and I think it's eye-opening because it's not our experience. And I think that's what's so eye-opening is when I know you two who consider friends, so thankfully you're part of our Pursuit Church, and to hear that you guys have been treated like that, or that's part of, you're taught by your parents and you have to teach your kids. That's heartbreaking as a Christian, as a fellow citizen, as a human being. That should break your heart to hear that is the current state that we find ourselves in our culture, in our country. I don't know, John, if you have any, go ahead, Yucari, are you reaching up?
One of the things I want to point out, like all of us are parents, right? So think about in the time when Moses' mom was about to have him. And she didn't know what she was having. She didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl, right? Because they didn't have ultrasounds back in that day. But she knew the minute that she had this baby, there was an opportunity that this baby was going to die, because that was the law, that was the rule, that was what was going on. And so you can imagine she's growing this baby, and every month she's like, oh my God, I got something growing inside of me. And for any mom that's ever experienced that, it's like earth-shattering, right? Because you feel this baby, this is a part of you. And for us, this is what this is like. Because the minute that baby came out and that midwife said, it's a boy, you can only imagine the emotions that went through her, because she knew at that moment, my child is going to die. And so what did she do? She did the one thing she thought she could do. She was like, I got to get this baby out of here. I got to take my baby that I just had, that I've, carried for 9 months, and I'm going to watch my baby drift off into this water, right? Not knowing, I'm hoping, like my plan is that this baby's going to end up somewhere where my baby's going to be safe and secure and grow longer than a day. We do that every day with our kids because we don't know what's going to happen the minute they get in that car. And even with our own lives, like it's okay for us to think about it, but when we think about our kids, it's a whole different level. Because when I think about my kids and the fact that I'm thinking like Moses' mom, and she's like, oh my God, he's going down, and she's watching him float down that Nile River, and she doesn't know. That's what I fear, and that's what I feel every day when my kids get in that car. Right. Because you have to think, what was she thinking? What went through her head? How did she keep it together? Even when she knew, like, oh, I see my baby, and my baby's over here somewhere safe, but that's her child. You know what I'm saying? And so when we think about the things that have happened and the things that could possibly happen, you go, oh my gosh, that could be my child. So yeah, it was George Floyd, and yeah, it could be someone else, and yeah, it's going to be the next person. But our fear, and I know he can attest to this, is that could be my child.
Man, I so appreciate you guys just sharing candidly with us, with our Pursuit family, those that are tuning online, because man, we need to know. We can't just sit back and pretend like nothing's happening, that people aren't being treated differently because of the color of skin. We have to learn the hard truth so that we can stand up and be a voice to stand up alongside, to call out when we see things that we know are not of God. And so I just really appreciate you guys sharing candidly what's going on. Now, I wish we had so much more time to continue this conversation because there's so many layers of this that we can't even get into in 45 minutes. But I wanted to close with a final question. And I love, Ernest, you're an ordained minister. We're in the church. And I would love for you to pastor us a little bit here. The question that I sent to you guys ahead of time, I started with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is the quote. It says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Can you talk about that statement and pastor the faith community a little bit?
The Bible says in Psalm 82, verses 3, it says, "To defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and the needy." And of course, we know this was one of the parts of what David was writing. When you look at that, or you look at what Martin Luther King was saying, this is a reflection of what we're trying to break apart in the Minot community and abroad. We want people to stop being silent when they see injustices. Like my enemies, I know when someone does not like me because of whatever I stand for, that voice it. I can deal with that accordingly. I can choose to shut it out of my mind and say I won't deal with them anymore, or I can choose to confront it and try to educate them on why not to feel that way. But when you're quiet and do not do anything, that hurts the most. Because what you're saying is, complacently, I'm okay with whatever is going on with you. And Martin Luther King Jr. and the scripture is trying to say, when you see an injustice, and that was our quote from the George Floyd Memorial, when you see something, you have to say something. You can no longer sit back in 2020 and decide that I will allow things, people that are in my circle and in my group that need comfort, that need someone to speak for them. I'm riding with them in the car and I'm black and they're white and the cop is saying all these things that he's saying and the person that's white don't say anything. That can't be. Or you see an injustice happening where someone of another race is treating someone unjustly and you hit the record button, but you don't do anything. Enough is enough. We need, let me say it like this. I need for you to speak up for me because my life is in danger. I'm just going to say it. My life is at a point where I don't know what could happen. And if you're with me or you see it, you must step in and intervene and say, you know what? No, that's not the way you treat this individual. That's not right. Do you need somebody to come in and just show you? Let's end it, because that man is panicking. That young lady is panicking. That child is crying, and you're treating them unjustly, and it cannot continue. And Martin Luther King was saying, if you say you're my friend, but you don't say anything, I can't trust you. How can two walk unless they agree? The Bible says that. Well, the agreement comes from them talking about it, because I don't know you agree with me unless you say something. It's time for the communities to speak up and say something about injustice and begin to educate their circles on how to treat people equally. It's not hard to figure out how to treat somebody equally. It's harder to harbor hate in your heart and figure out ways to treat people unjustly. That's what's difficult. And that requires a whole lot of energy than simply just saying, I like you, I appreciate you, I enjoy everything about you, and I stand with you. That was very easy. And it was not scripted. It was not written somewhere. That was my heart. That's easy. But we need people that don't look like us to speak up for us. And that's what Martin Luther King was saying.
That's a powerful word, Ernest, and I appreciate you sharing that. And obviously, as a local church, as the Pursuit Church, we want to be that. We don't want to be a passive voice. We want to stand up and come beside those in our community that are being treated unjustly. And so Pursuit Church, that's the challenge. Love your neighbor as yourself. You can't just say, I love the Lord my God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and neglect loving your neighbor as yourself. And so it's so critical. As we wrap our time up, like I said, I wish we had more time here. Ernest, would you do me a favor? Would you close us out in prayer? Just pray for us, pray for our local church.
God, we just thank you and we honor you for this moment of time that, God, we've spent together just simply understanding through your word how we can, God, work together, how we can be united through your word, loving our neighbors as ourselves, asking ourselves the question, how much do we love ourselves? Because that's a representation of how much we love those that do and do not look like us. God, help us, God. Please plant seeds in our heart of compassion. For things we don't understand, still compassion. For people that are hurting, God, compassion. And God, help us to not just have compassion, but to be patient one with another as we learn and become educated, God, on simply the process of how to treat my brother and sister, because I know everybody has not had the same experience. But God, we have your word we can look to. And the Bible says your word is a lamp unto our feet, a light unto our path, God. We open that word up and we will study it to show ourselves approved, that we don't be workmen that are ashamed, but we rightly divide the word of truth in simply loving each other. God, let this Minot community, God, also have an open heart on loving each other. God, let the communities of Minot be a beacon to other communities on how to show your love. God, we love you and we thank you. And we know this time going forward, God, that the change will begin to take place in your people. It's in Jesus' name we thank you and praise you for this opportunity and this time. Amen.
Amen.
What a powerful conversation. That was just great for us to have. I know a lot of times, until we can put ourselves in other shoes, it's hard to have empathy and understand where people are coming from. And as followers of Jesus, one of our first aims should be to learn how to empathize with those around us in our communities, because ultimately God wants us to be a light into our community and draw people towards him. And that's the first step in being that light, and wherever you are at or whatever community God has placed you. One of our passions at The Pursuit is for all of us to take next steps in our faith. So I don't know what your next step is, but we'd love as a local church to come alongside you and help you take that next step. You can always email us at hello@thepursuit.church. You can even drop a comment during this message and we'll get with you. But have a great week, and we'll see you back next week for our new sermon series, Mixtape Volume 3, the Disney series.